I'm going to make a little drawing after this self-portrait by Rembrandt van Rijn. I believe it was his birthday yesterday, the 15th of July. It's now the 16th, I believe. Anyway, I'm using this mechanical pencil. It's a very thick mechanical pencil. So and this time I'm not going to draw the outlines. I'm just going to start with light and dark. The paper is light, so I just add darks. Sometimes drawing is very simple. So, well, I think we have a likeness here. Only joking. I will zoom in a little bit. And I will leave some space here, so I will add the image later on in the video on the right. So. And I think his face is getting defined now, quite quickly actually. So this is quite typical what happens here. This area. So I define his features really in lights and darks, and as I go along in this drawing I might add some detailed work, but this thicker pencil, it's not really graphite. I should look up what it is exactly, and I will put it in the description of the video what I'm exactly drawing with. But since this material gives me the opportunity to make large dark areas, shadow areas, it's nice to do that, to build up the image, the face, just from areas of shadow, darkness, whatever. Now I come to a point that I think, well, I should work a little more on his likeness, and maybe after the rough start to get basically the drawing on the paper, I can start adding details or work towards a more detailed approach, perhaps, where I can put accentuations like these, so he gets a little more definition in his face, in his eyes. Now I want the tonal values to be more accurate, to reflect what's in the painting. And now I want his face to be more accurate, that I see, well, it's Rembrandt. It's him. And I'm really looking at tonal values now. So which are the darker areas, which are the lightest areas. So the nose and the forehead are the lightest areas. So I try to keep those lightest, but this area, for example, is a bit darker than this area. So when you look at the source photograph, so I try to get those relations right between the several pieces or details of this drawing. And now I have the tendency to just keep on adding dark values on this drawing. So I like the way this pencil goes over the paper actually. And I just go on. And I really want all of the paper done. So sometimes you have a drawing and the piece of the paper is the drawing and you have this white around the drawing, the white of the paper. But I really want to have this whole area covered with, you know, something, tonal values, etc. And now I am going to focus on his face. I do not have a sharp point at this pencil anymore, but when I hold it on a sort of, in a certain angle, I can get some details still with it. I have the tendency at this moment to not sharpen these pencils, but just draw along with how it is, like this, a bit of a stump. I can't get it really sharp now. Yeah, if I hold it on the side, you can see that I can still, well, on the side, you know, the edge of this is still capable of adding fine lines, so you can still use it for relatively fine work, even if you don't sharpen it. But now I want the tonal values to be done. And it needs some concentration now. So and this has to be quite dark, this area, so I just go along with this. the wrinkles in his forehead. I try to suggest some of it. I usually draw young women, so my models are usually a lot younger, so I don't have the habit of drawing old elderly people. I should do that more, because that's interesting too. But I'm looking how I can suggest these wrinkles on his forehead without overdoing it. I like my drawings to be optical, interesting. And this can be a lot darker. I made this a little longer now. And I'm not satisfied with how he looks now. He's too fat. And I just keep scratching and hatching and whatever it's needed. Where I need some more darkness, I just add darkness without really thinking, oh, it should be this or that kind of hatching. I just, perhaps intuitively I do that, but I just add something dark there. I don't even bother to make a beautiful hatching or whatever, just get it darker there, and the overall structure gets a sort of unity because it's the same hand, of course, which does that. And slowly we get this clair-obscur effect. So now I've treated his face a bit more, and he looks a bit angry. He should look more friendly. And now when you look at this, I'll just light on the drawing. When you look at this painting, you can see that this area is lightest, this area, and also this area of his beret. Painter's beret, I think. So I will just make this a little darker and leave this lighter. And now I want his clothing here darker, so you get this clair obscure effect in his face. As I said, I want the whole paper to be filled, so to speak, with tonal values, so I need to get his clothing darker. And this. His hair. And you can see how this gets formed now. The background needs some darkening as well. Use a strong accentuation. And here too. And now I come at this point that I want to draw further on its face again. So it needs some more definition now. I don't want this to be too much as a line around his face, so I make this an area which is dark. And you see here that there is light from the left, and his shadow side of his face also receives some light, but that is reflected light in the room, so to speak. So there's also always some reflected light, should I say ambient light or whatever. And I'm starting to reach a point that I think, well, enough is enough. If I go further on this drawing, I make it less interesting drawing. I can try to, because this is hair, so get his hair defined a bit. And I like a sort of soft focus effect, or very yeah, how do you say that? Not too detailed. You know, you have this structure of the paper, which holds very nicely with the graphite or whatever it is, and maybe some accentuations. But I'm reaching the point. I've reached the point that I think, well, quit while you're ahead. It's a nice drawing, and it has some energy now, so I think I leave it at this. Yeah. Then I look at this. Should I make it more dark? But I like the sketchiness of certain areas. The whole drawing, actually. Thank you for watching. Thank you.